Are you wondering what one of the number one milestones speech and language therapists look for in a child who's just started school? Well, it's actually past tense verbs. So oftentimes, if a child isn't able to say past tense verbs consistently, some errors are okay. That usually is a bit of a red flag for a speech therapist. They'll probably try to monitor to see how other language milestones are coming in. So past tense verbs are very important foundations for language development in general. And if by the time a child's in kindergarten, or if by the time a child is in first grade, they're still making consistent errors with their past tense, or they're showing they're not able to use past tense, that is something that they might take a closer look at. So you as a parent can help your child with this in 3 super simple ways. Before we get into that, though, a quick introduction. Hi, my name is Amini. I'm a speech and language pathologist with several years of experience working with children and their families to maximize speech and language development. I have a private practice in the Bay Area, Smarter Speech, where I do the same. And my mission with this YouTube channel is to empower parents and caregivers, especially those with children who are around 5 years of age or younger, because this is when a child's speech and language are developing so rapidly, and little changes that you make in talking and in playing can have huge implications for how speech and language and also learning in general develop in the years to come. So without further ado, let's get into it. 3 ways that I suggest teaching your child past tense. So for all of these 3, you'll notice something pretty important. You're not forcing your child to say anything. So you're not putting them on the spot by asking them questions. You're not asking them to repeat after you. You are just focusing on what it is that you are saying, because you're one of your child's primary teachers. And just the way that you talk has a huge impact on the way that your child talks. So if you can just target something subtly, it can really pay off, and you can help your child acquire whatever milestone it is quicker. So each of my 3 tips are going to be focusing on what you say, not on what your child says. The first one is very easy and something you can probably incorporate into every single day's routine. It is recapping what happened during the day. So whether you're using a calendar or a habit tracker like this to see what you guys did, you can talk about what happened in the day. Notice that there are 2 types of past tense verbs. There's something called a regular past tense verb, and this involves the past tense ed at the end of the verb. So played, walked, talked, all of those verbs have the same ed put at the end of that verb stem. And then you've got irregular ones, which don't follow rules in terms of how to make the verb past tense. So for example, slept for sleep, woke, ate, drink. All of those are irregular past tense. So ideally, you'll get a good mix of both of them just when you're regularly talking with your child. So say, for example, you are looking through a calendar and you're tracking what you did today and checking it off. So you could just start off with, well, we woke up early. So we did that, check. Notice the way I really emphasize that verb. We woke up early. We brushed our teeth. We took a bath. We ate breakfast. We changed clothes. We went to school. You could do that whole recap at the end of the day. Maybe you're giving your child a sticker for a good day, or following most of their routines. And so that's a great time for you to commend your child, but then also kind of bombard and repeat that past tense over and over again. Notice the way that I emphasized the word. I made it nice and slow, pressed on the syllables and the sounds a little bit to help the child notice those verbs. So that's a super easy way, very seamlessly integrated into a day. Another way that I work on this is whenever I'm recapping something that happened in a story. So this story can either be a book, it can be a TV show that you've watched, or a movie that you've watched. And you could talk about what happened either during the commercial breaks or maybe after whatever you're watching with your child is done. This is a great bonding activity, and then you can just help that recap. And during that recap, you can talk about the verbs that you saw. So for example, if I were to read The Napping House with a child, every couple of pages, I would recap what happened. So for example, if I can open this book, you can talk about how the boy walked. You can talk about how the grandma slept. You can talk about how it rained. And you can talk about how the pillow fluffed. Maybe you can talk about how the boy slept or took a nap. Or maybe you can talk about how it was quiet. So every couple of pages, after I read the text and I look at the pictures, I would highlight a few verbs for the child. You can do it every few pages, or once you've finished the book, you can say, so what happened in that book? And then recap. Well, the granny slept, then the boy came in, then the dog climbed on the boy, and keep going through the entire recap. That's a little bit more advanced, but if your child is at that point where they can recap an entire narrative, you can do that as well. That's a great way to do it. And again, favorite TV shows, favorite movies, you're likely to get a little bit more buy-in. My last tip is to recap with your child how you played or made something together. So normally you can just set aside 10 or 15 minutes for any sort of an activity, whether that's Play-Doh, or maybe you're playing with some modeling clay together and you've built something together, and your child wants to show off whatever beautiful creation they've made. You can have your child talk about how you made each of the things. So for example, say that you guys made this flower. If I can get it to focus, this flower right here. You can talk about how you took the clay. You can talk about how you shaped it. You can talk about how you added the clay. You can talk about how you glued things, how you made the smiley, etc. So if your child doesn't want to do the talking by themselves, you can do the prompting and the talking and narrating what happened. A question that I get often is, what happens if a child is recapping and they're using the wrong verb? That happens a lot. All you have to do is don't tell them they're wrong. Don't very explicitly correct them. Instead, just repeat what they said with the right verb. So say for your example, your child said, I glued the clay. You can say, yeah, you're right. We glued the clay. So I just repeated it back, but I emphasized the correct way to say it. And I also said, yeah, you're right. So I didn't give the child any negative feedback, which would make them less likely to want to engage with me, less likely to want to play or talk about the way it is that they played. So there you have it, 3 ways to help your child with past tense, a crucial language milestone, especially as your child is approaching kindergarten or maybe is already in kindergarten. That's a nice, easy one that you can just do in your daily routines. If you continue to be concerned about your child's ability to retell or use past tense verbs, this is something that you want to communicate about with your child's teacher, or maybe make an assessment with a speech and language pathologist near you, or talk to a pediatrician. Whatever it is, if you continue to be concerned, it's always a good idea to speak to a professional sooner than later. These are just general tips, but they are not a substitute for speech therapy. If you're looking for some more resources to help your child, either your preschool or your kindergarten, with language development, check out some of the resources in the description box below. You'll find a link to our mailing list so you can subscribe for a free monthly email with a tip on speech and language development. There's also a link to our ebooks, our parent education courses, and a link to some of the materials that I used in this demo. I hope that this video helped you. Thank you so much for watching, and happy talking.